A Game of Thrones has blown viewers and readers away due to its very unique style of storytelling. There aren't many movies or books out there right now that show protagonists losing or dying, but in this story, death comes to all. Ned Stark's arc is a brilliant one because this character taught us that no one is safe, not even a protagonist as important as him. So, what really happened? Why was Ned Stark killed? That's what we're going to talk about today on Games of Power.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. There is no middle ground.
Guys and gals, welcome to a Game of Power series where I talk about the 48 Laws of Power and how Game of Thrones characters use or misuse these powers to play the Game of Thrones. As I've mentioned before, today I'm going to break down for you why Ned Stark was killed. If you're an avid watcher of the show or reader of the book, Ned dies because he makes some pretty terrible decisions. But why were they so terrible? What made those decisions so bad? In my opinion, it all comes down to the 48 Laws of Power. So in a little bit, I'll be going through those laws that, in my opinion, he violates during the later half of Season 1 as he's tasked with transitioning power after Robert's death. I will be going through them in order of appearance, starting with when Ned first figures out that Robert has no true heirs up until the time of his actual death on the show. So, let's get started. We're going to first start off with his conversation with Cersei in the courtyard. The first law that he violates is one that we just recently discussed in episode 2. The third law of power: conceal your intentions. Ned Stark outright confronts Cersei, telling her that he knows about her little secret. He went on to tell her his plans and what she needs to do in order to flee the castle with her and her children. The irony here is that Ned actually thinks he's doing her a favor by giving her an opportunity to spare herself and her children. What he didn't realize is she wasn't going to go anywhere anytime soon, becoming his biggest rivalry during the transition of power from Robert to his true successor. Cersei had absolutely no intention of giving up on this opportunity to grab power, and now that Ned has told her his plan, she has the opportunity to devise a countermove. By being absolutely oblivious to Cersei's ambitions and motives, he completely miscalculated how to handle her as a player, thusly giving up his hand and losing the pot completely. The third law of power isn't the only law that he violated in the show and the books, so let's go over the next one now. Law number 14, pose as a friend, work as a spy. Even though this law literally states work as a spy, the main point of this law is to be in the know. Whether you are gathering intelligence or whether someone else is gathering it for you, it's important to know what's going on around you. Something Littlefinger has said before, it's usually what you don't know that kills you. One of the reasons why he was telling everyone his plans was because he couldn't really differentiate between friend and foe. He didn't know who his enemies truly were because he wasn't doing his homework. He had no one gathering intel for him on his rivals. Ned didn't have the lay of the land that he needed to make smart decisions and outmaneuver his rivals. I like to think of it as playing Age of Empires. If you've ever played Age of Empires, you'll know that you first begin the game in a complete fog of war. You must actively explore in order to find resources and strategize against your opponents. But if you don't do this, You won't be able to acquire the necessary materials you need to level up your kingdom and your armies, which leave you vulnerable to your enemies. If you are too far behind the other players, you will always be on the defensive, never ultimately being able to go on the offensive and deal damage to them. This is exactly how Ned is operating. He's trying to outmaneuver rivals in a complete fog of war. He has no resources and no powerful allies to join forces with. He is outnumbered and is being outflanked. This explains why he so naively tells both Littlefinger and Cersei his plans to keep Joffrey from taking the throne. I mean, come on, he didn't even know Robert had died until it was too late to make a move before Cersei could. Which brings us to our last law violation, one I think really encapsulates everything Ned ultimately wasn't able to accomplish: formlessness. At the end of the day, everything that Ned Stark did came down to him becoming the largest and brightest target in the sky. If these characters were playing poker, Ned would be the guy losing his money to everyone because he was only playing the surface level game. He's the kind of player that would only play a hand if it's halfway decent and would probably easily succumb to a more sophisticated player's bluff. So he's playing a game by the superficial rules and refusing to play the game by the underlying set of secondary rules, the game that everyone else is playing around him. In a way, Ned Stark and Peter Baelish's characters are complete contrasts of each other, and this comes down to how they ultimately make decisions. As I went through in episode 2 of Games of Power, Peter Baelish tried to play the game of the knights and the warriors, but was sorely beaten. This experience taught Littlefinger that he couldn't play by their rules because if he did, he would lose. Knowing this, he completely switched up his strategy. He started playing a game that had completely different rules and was able to increase his power and influence because of this. Ned Stark is the complete opposite of this. He played the game of nobility, honesty, and continued to do so even after seeing his enemies swarm around him. Ned refused to play the game with these different rule subsets because he felt that by doing the right thing, he would be able to overcome these nefarious tactics. Choosing to stay oblivious to what was going on around him, he didn't change or adapt to the board everyone else was playing. To me, it felt like he was playing tic-tac-toe while everyone else was playing a game of more sophisticated chess. Was him choosing the noble path ultimately the right thing, though? He was a good guy with good intentions that could have done a lot of good things for the people of Westeros, but he made moves that ultimately kicked him out of the game too soon. So did he really do the right thing? Is it okay to have good intentions and make one or two immoral moves to, in the end, get the right income? Do the ends justify the means? Is he still the good guy, even though he didn't get the job done? Look, I don't know the answers to these questions, but I'd love to talk about them in the comments. Alrighty folks, this is all that I have for you today. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more. I appreciate the support.